It's not what you did, son, that angers me so. It's who you did it to.
Hello guys, welcome back. And today is Friday. So today I'll be going through a trade breakdown of the trade which we took this week on the US30 or the Dow Jones. So without wasting any further time, let's get straight into it. So on the higher time frame, let's start on our weekly time frame. We can see that the indices are currently trading in their all-time highs right now. So right over here, we had no key level at the top. Here currently has no key level which you're targeting right now to buy. So once we are buying on the higher time frame, here is no key level which we are targeting if we are buying right now. On the weekly time frame, there is no key level here on top. But on the S&P 500, we had a key level which was this high, which was not yet taken out. So that was it before we started this week. Then dropping down to my daily time frame is that on Monday you can see that we opened with a gap. This was a new week opening gap right over here. Then on Tuesday we gapped again. The market lifted gap. This was a new day opening gap right over here. So we had two consecutive gaps right over here. So I did not want to take part in this. And the reason why I did not take part in this is because there was no high impact news during these days. There was no high impact news during Monday as well as on Tuesday. But on Wednesday, that's when we had the FOMC, right? We had the FOMC. Now, on our daily time frame, we can see this candle right over here on the S&P 500 is a up close candle right over here. But on the US30, we have a up close candle. So these two candles right over here are precision swing points right over here. This was a precision swing point right over here on the S&P 500, but right over here on the Nasdaq, this is a precision candle because this candle right over here was wicked above, so this becomes a precision candle right over here. So I hope you understood that. So going into Wednesday, let me just drop down to my lower time frame and divide this week into its quarters. And before going down to my lower time frame, let me just do this right over here. The reason why we took out this candle right over, these candles high over here, and failed to do so on the S&P 500 is because when we have these two precision swing points, the one that is lower probability to be taken out is the one that creates the up close candle if we want to sell. So if we want to sell, we need to see a bearish candle right over here. This confirms that we have, this is the stronger asset pair right over here, the S&P 500, because it showed weakness over here. This candle showed that we still had momentum to go to the upside. So this is the differences that happened right over here, and that is why we swept again right over here on the Dow Jones. So now let's go to our lower time frame. Right over here, let me just add one more. So if you can see right over here on Wednesday, that's when we had the high impact news event, which was the FOMC. Right over here on Wednesday. So going into Wednesday, we expected to see the high of the week being formed on Wednesday because we had the high impact news. So right over here, we failed to take out Tuesday's high, taking it out on the Dow Jones. So right over here, you can see that we had sequential SMT right over here between these two asset pairs. We had sequential SMT plus over here we had the new week opening, true week opening price right over here. I'll just make it accurate right over there. And right over here we had a true week opening price right over here. So you can see what happened over here. We created sequential SMT above the true opening price of our weekly cycle, right? We created this sequential SMT above, taking out Tuesday's high right over here, failing to do so on the S&P 500. I just want you to take a look at this candle right over here. This was the 4 p.m. candle right over here, South African Standard Time right over here. This was the 4 p.m. candle on our 1 hour time frame. So now let's just go on the Nasdaq. Here we had a precision swing point as well, right over here. Right over here we had a precision swing point right over here. If you compare it with the Nasdaq. So we had a precision swing point right over there. And as you know that once you have a higher time frame, to confirm that it is a real precision swing point, it needs to align with the lower time frame precision swing point. So you can see that on our higher time frame, we had a precision swing point. Now we have in a precision swing point right over here on the 1 hour time frame. So at this point, we need to see a lower time frame precision swing point. And right over here we had this precision swing point right over here, right over here. So you can see that exactly at the same level right over here, it was around 4:15. At the same point, we had a 15-minute precision swing point right over here. So you could have entered your trade off the precision swing point right over here and put your stops above. Entry right over here, your stops above, and you would have taken your trade right over there. I hope this is clear enough. I won't be going deep into this, but I just wanted to show you what actually happened last week. What actually happened last week. And you can see that we had sequential SMT again right over here between Q2 and Q3. Let me just right over here. We had sequential SMT as well on our daily cycle between Q2 and Q3. And then we can as well go over here, marking out this high between Q2 and Q3. We failed to take out Asia high on the S&P 500 by doing so on the Dow Jones right over here. So this was, can you see what actually happened over here? Q2 on our weekly time frame between Tuesday and Wednesday, we had sequential SMT between Q2 and Q3. Now right over here, we have sequential SMT between Q2, which is Asia session, and which is London session and New York session right over here. And what happened in Q3? Q3 is known to distribute. So this was Wednesday, and Wednesday is known to distribute, which is Q3 right over here. Q3 is known to distribute, and this is what actually happened right over here. Q4 right over here, when we had FOMC, and you can see how aggressively the market was going to the downside right over here. The market just went expanded to the downside, targeting this new week. Was this a it's a new day opening gap? This was a new day opening gap right over here, which was our first target. We took our partials right over here, and then we are still holding the rest, right? So I hope this was a clear. I hope it was clear and we had no confusion of what actually happened during this week. Well, everyone was buying right over here, buying all the way right over here. We were waiting for this to print out, which is our one shot, one Q. And we only took one trade this week on the Dow Jones, and that was it. And you can see the market just expanded to the downside. So yeah, that was basically it. And let me just mark out this right over here to show you that sequential SMT always happens above the true opening price. This was a true day opening price. This was a true day opening price. I'm just trying to see the candle, but it was right there. This was a true day opening price right over here, and you can see the sequential SMT happened above, but now just look at what happened. Where did this sequential SMT happen? Right over here. Let me just adjust my lines. Right over here. Which candle is this? The 6. We just failed to tag this 2-day opening price right over here. Right over here. We failed with some pips right over there. But can you see right over here on the Dow Jones? This is another entry right over here. This is another entry right over here. If you missed all these entries which happened above over here, you could have entered your trade right over here and you could have held your trade to the downside. So true opening prices are key levels in the market, and you can use them to enter your trades, but you always need a key level right over here at this point. But I won't be going through that right now. I just wanted you to show you how this actually happened. Okay, so that is basically it for this video, and I'll be seeing you next week. So I hope you enjoy the rest of your week and take care.